My name is Ryan Clark. I'm 28. I live in Fort Collins, Colorado right now, and I was adopted through Holt when I was 11 months old. Growing up being adopted, I lived in the Midwest, grew up in the middle of Kansas. My relationship with my parents, I'd say I felt like they were kind of authoritarian towards me. I don't know, I don't have a really close relationship with my parents. I do love them, and they're still a part of my life. I just felt like I didn't really relate to them, and as it turns out, don't really share their views on life, as far as they're kind of conservative and not risk-taking, and I don't follow that same doctrine. I don't have any adopted brothers or sisters. I have two siblings. I have two younger brothers. They're my parents' biological children. One's 4 years younger than me, one's 7 years younger than me, and we're pretty close. I mean, we grew up together, and I talk to them as much as I can. They got their own lives now, but we have a good rapport. I always did wonder about my biological parents, and wondered about what or how I was supposed to fit into Korean culture as a child. I didn't realize later that Korean people are fairly xenophobic, not intended as an insult, but they are. I kind of just shut that part out of my life because I was a kid in the Midwest. I just wanted to have friends and just do what they were doing, and I just looked at myself as another kid, really. And it wasn't until you got bullied or somebody said something or made an offhand comment towards you that I really thought about that kind of thing. I'm sure, like a lot of other Midwestern adoptees, probably feel the same way, just not being around other Korean adoptees or Asian people in general. I mean, I just remember every week, just as being 6, 7 years old, just crying every week, and getting just pushed around, shoved around, calling names. It still hurts to this day. I'm 28 now, and I still have people in this, I think all Korean adoptees and just Asian people in general in America probably have experienced people calling them, names or whatever, or just even the more subtle things where they kind of dissociate your identity down to just your Asian ethnic background or Asian racial background. I think that's kind of even more hurtful in a way, because it's not taking a look at you as a person or your personality. It's isolating it down to just one element that's not necessarily important. I felt like my parents didn't really offer me any sort of avenues towards my cultural heritage. Maybe that's the one thing I resent them for a little bit. I don't think they really talked to me about it at all. It's just really a subject I've never broached with them, and to this day, it's just not really something I talk to them about. And I don't know, maybe that's unfair of me because I never gave them the chance, but at the same time, I just don't think that it's something they never made me feel comfortable about talking about on the flip side. So it's kind of like both our faults, I suppose you'd say, but yeah, it's not something I really talk to them about. The circumstances surrounding my adoption, as far as I know, and I've recently started to try to make avenues and inroads towards finding more information about this, but so far what I have is what I was given in my basic file of information that Holt gives you, and it's I don't know if it's a standard story or not, but it basically says, my mother was unwed, unemployed, my father was married to someone else and left after I was conceived, and after 6 or 7 months or however long, I was placed in foster care service and adopted at 11 months. I'm not good at self-psychology, but my relationships with people, how I think my adoption has played a part in that, I would say I'm very candid. If you ask me something, I'm very open, but I'm also not one to just let people close to me. And I think that stems from just being bullied a lot as a kid. I tend to shut people out, and I have few close friends, but the ones that I do have are very close to me, and I think that boils down to just a self-defense mechanism I developed as a kid. I would say it does have a lot to do with trust, as far as creating boundaries between myself and others before they can try to damage me. I just tend not to trust people. So as far as trying to connect with other Korean adoptees, the only thing I had to do is get on Facebook. So, hey look, what's the most active group? Korean American adoptees. So I started posting in it, and you add a couple people as friends, which turns into more friends and turns into trading stories and just generally talking to people. And it doesn't always have to be about heavy adoption related issues. Sometimes it's just cool to talk to people that have a similar experience as you without having to explain all the background noise, and being able to just talk about real life stuff. And that's cool in its own right, even if it's not a really moving, dramatic thing, because it's something I think a lot of people that have a cultural identity they can associate with. I think it's something they take for granted, and it's something when you experience it, you don't realize it at first, but it is cool to step back and realize that no one's going to judge you for not speaking Korean or knowing Korean customs or looking Korean and not having those attributes. So it's kind of like we're in the center of the Venn diagram, or maybe we're outside of it completely. I don't know which, but it's kind of cool to be able to just talk to people and not have to go through all the sundry list of items that you have to explain to people. My advice to other Korean adoptees is don't be afraid to reach out. I know maybe if you're like me, you had a journey that made you put up walls and try to be artificially tough for no reason. And there's nothing wrong, or there's no shame in being vulnerable and sharing your story, or just reaching out to others and talking about what you went through, because as unique as everyone's experience is, you can relate a big majority of it to other people. And it's not weakness to rely on the strength of other people to talk to them. If the CAD community keeps getting stronger and it keeps becoming more important, that people should go through the effort to reach out to it and be a part of it. You don't have to let it consume your life, or you can let it be a big part of your life. It's up to you, it's up to the individual, but don't let the opportunity to reach out and connect go by you because you might have a walled or defensive past. It's there, and it's there for as much or little as you want to use it for. So definitely. I think probably reconnecting with Korean culture might be painful for some adoptees because it's just another form of rejection. For me, it was never really painful. I just never had the opportunity. I grew up in Kansas. How many Korean people are in Kansas, really? I didn't have the opportunity to live in DC or in San Francisco or LA or even Minnesota, these places where there's more Korean people to talk to. Adoption's both the abandonment of an old life and the opportunity towards a new life, I think, for anybody. Because look at the root word adopt. You can adopt a new skill, or you can adopt a new look on life. So when you are adopted, that's your chance to try to make a new life for yourself, or look at it as the opportunity to make a new life for yourself. And certainly there's residual baggage, and that's not unique to adoption. The adoption-related baggage is certainly unique to other baggages, but it's definitely not all a curse. It can be a blessing. I think it's somewhere along the spectrum between both being a curse and a blessing, and it's something that being able to talk to other people about that have at least similar experiences, it helps you along that path for sure. For me personally, it's definitely given me a unique perspective on life, or I feel like it has. And adoption for me, I always look at my life and say, even though there's bad things in it, I would never want to trade my life for someone else's, and adoption's part of that. So I think it's definitely more good than bad. I think everything's a little bit more good than bad.